Greetings. My name is Maria James-Thiaw, and this is the American Griot Project, where her story meets creative expression. Today we are going to go over the objectives of this project, define what a griot is, and talk about the three phases: oral history, creative expression, and education. First, the objectives. The reason why I started this project, and it was first conceived of, probably it's been about 6 years now. So the reason why we brought it to fruition is to remember and celebrate the contributions of women in civil rights history. To help youth understand the lives and experiences of ordinary women in history, to preserve historic events from the perspective of eyewitnesses, and to use creative expression as a means of exhibiting historic research. The word griot comes from West Africa. Griots have the all-important task of keeping the oral history of a village or tribe, which they relay to people in the form of songs, poems, stories, and dances. The American Griot Project allows the oral histories of women to be shared as a staged production called a choreo poem. The first phase of the project involves field work. This is where I went out and interviewed several women between the ages of 65 and 92 about their experiences. Here's a clip of a video that was made from those interviews early on in the project by Romeo Azandakan, our Chief Diversity Officer at Central Penn College. Here's some clips.
Tell a story of me applying for a job. And I was applying for a job at East Stroudsburg College. And the job was as a clerk typist, because that was what was advertised. I could type, badly mind you, but I could type. And I applied for the job, and with the last name of Zedekowitz, which is my married name, talk about Mr. Stiglitz, they may not have expected me when I showed up at the door. So I got the interview, showed up to the interview, and was told the position was filled. And that applicants were way out.
Freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
So like being up north was different. You didn't know. Being up north, you were like everyone else. You did not have lynchings. You did not grow up in a culture where somebody knew somebody that was lynched. Right. You did not grow up in a culture where you knew how to act the right way. My grandfather owned a trucking company, but my father would also drive a bus, because as a teacher, he had the summers off. So driving bus means that if you take your people down into the South, you learn how to act differently. If you are pulled, even back in that day, even if you're pulled off from the side of the road, the cap comes off, and it's almost like, yes, sir. because things still happen. Right, right. You may not show up in the paper, but things did happen. They were whispered among the relatives.
So those clips were from one of our amazing griots, Shell Taylor, and she is a public speaker. She talks about, she works with her husband and helps people with appreciating their marriages and things. And she is in an interracial relationship. And Bill fell in love before it was even legal for them to fall in love. So again, that's just part of what we are doing here with the American Griot Project. The women that I interviewed for this are not all African American. Most of them are, but there were women that are white, women that are Black, women that were Jewish, Christian. They were from not only this area in Harrisburg, but from different parts of the country, from Tennessee, New Jersey, everywhere in between. They ranged in age from 65 to 92 years old. And yes, some of them were activists, but others were women of witness. They were children, they were students, they were wives, moms, daughters. They were just told stories about their life. What was life like? What was it like to fall in love when they said it was illegal to fall in love? What was it like to be educated at a time when they were trying to steer you away from professional courses into a home ec and things like that? What was it like to know that the KKK was after you about something? So many different things. So amazing stories to me, and these are the stories that really shock the generation younger than me that really have no concept of what it was like to live in the Jim Crow era. Now, there were challenges to this project. One major challenge is that we lost some griots. So we had these two lovely ladies agreed to be interviewed and then passed away before they could be. So I just want to pay homage to Ava Hip Soul, who was an activist. One of the last times I saw her, she was out in the street marching for Trayvon Martin, and she never stopped being an activist. And then Anne Lyon, who I have a poem about her in the show. She's amazing, also an activist and professor, and really made an impact on people. Another challenge that we had was getting in contact, just technology. Some folks have email addresses but never check them. Some folks have cell phones and don't use them. And some folks don't even have email or cell phones. And their technology was an issue at times. Understanding different perspectives is really big too. There's some things that in this era we don't say, or might be buzzwords or things that remind us of a bygone era, and some people still say that. I had someone say that everything was fine in their town until those outside agitators came. And you can't react. You have to let them tell their story from their perspective. What are they going to share with us? And then the last thing was trauma and secrets. There are some situations that folks still can't talk about. I would really love to know what went on surrounding the Lily Bell Allen situation in York, PA, but nobody in York wants to talk to me, okay? There are other situations that were very painful, where family members were lynched, people's lives were threatened, things like that, where people don't feel comfortable talking about those things, and that's understandable. So those were some of the challenges of the project, but it still was a great success. And I have some amazing stories from women, which in I am working with director Janet Bixler, excellent theater director, on putting them together as a choreo poem and a stage production. We're holding auditions in January and going to have a cast of women who will perform these poems. This is not just a poetry reading. This is a performance. It includes multimedia. There is dance, there is music, there is spoken word. This is going to be a full-scale major production. I would love to see it hit the road and for us to be able to perform it in different locations. And also we are working on a book in which we will not only have the play, but we will also publish a study guide for educators. So this is an ongoing project. And that's phase 2 of the project, but phase 3 then would also be the education, which I will discuss that with you in a moment. But before I do, I would like to share a couple of the pieces with you. The first one is called The Introduction. Our parents were like shields against the hate of racism in our town. Our black street was a dark iris, the life-giving pollen-filled center of a white flower. Our folks were respected professionals, educators, scholars. We were allowed in spaces our colored classmates couldn't go. So I hadn't formally met old Jim Crow. Until that day, my friend and I tried to board the bus home. With a sweet smile, I approached a white woman sitting alone and said, "Pardon me, ma'am, but your packages have claimed the last available seat. I'd like to rest these tired feet. Would you mind? Would you mind?" Maybe her ears are weak. "Pardon me, ma'am, but your packages have claimed the last available seat. I sure would like to rest these tired feet. Would you mind? Would you mind?" "Ma'am, I think your ears are fine. I know you hear me, your steely blue staring at me in my face. All I asked for was a little space. Would you mind? Would you mind? Move in your packages so I can have a seat, rest my feet, sit for a bit. Would you mind? Would you mind?" Her eyes narrowed, as did mine. This was about to get good, bad, and ugly. I slung those bags to the floor so fast, the driver slammed on the brakes. She clutched her pearls in shock, and my friend's voice echoed like a drumbeat in my ears. "Go, Georgie, go. Go, Georgie, go. Go, Georgie, go." Adrenaline carried us home on worn-out, hand-me-down shoes. My friend said I could have gotten us locked up, or worse. My friend said I shouldn't have sassed that lady, and that's just the way it is. But she was wrong. This is wrong. That was my introduction. That's how I met old Jim Crow. And that poem was called The Introduction. It was written in honor of Georgia Johnson Heron, who is from Washington, D.C. and is 92 years old. I will continue telling you about our production in the next video. Thank you.